We were talking earlier about the skepticism over the so-called 10/11 plot. This is the Iranian assassination plot involving the Zetas and this kooky used car salesman from Corpus Christi, and a lot of people skeptical of the story, either because it doesn't seem to have a good motive attached to it. It traces back so easily to Iran. Why would Iran leave its fingerprints on something like this? Other people saying, wait a minute, why would the drug cartels that make tens of billions of dollars a year get involved in something that makes them $1 million? And then is this wag the dog? On the other hand, very credible people like the FBI director, Robert Mueller, certainly standing behind this allegation. Let's talk about it right now with Dr. Walid Phares, who's a Fox News Middle East expert, professor of global strategies. His website is walidphares.com. Dr. Phares, thanks for coming back to the show. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I mean, in so many ways, this plot, as it's alleged by the Justice Department, doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, or does it to you?
Well, I'd say, Jack, let's disconnect one level from the other, meaning, was it a plot? Yes, it was. What did the administration do with it in terms of how did they follow up? What did they decide to talk about it at that specific date? That's outside my realm. I mean, that's a political talk.
Right.
But the plot by itself, basically, and I know that you were talking in the introduction about being many skeptical people are criticizing, and I'm going to give two clarifications that may help to understand what kind of plot this was, according to the Department of Justice information and some background. Number one, it is in the strategy of the Pasdaran, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the Quds Force, the ones mentioned in the indictment, in the report. It is in their strategy when they want to target the United States. If the leadership did not take yet the decision to go full-fledged against us, because they will lose at this point in time, not to leave a signature. That's crucial. Mm-hmm. That explains why, although they have special groups, professionals, Hezbollah, you name it, they have a serious network here in the United States. They chose to go hire a subcontractor from the Zeta and not the entire Zeta. And you were mentioning this other point of, $1.5 million, because this is not a deal with the entire Zeta. This is a deal with a team to do it. Now, why are they doing this? First of all, they wanted to hit the Saudi embassy and the Saudi ambassador and separate this from the Israeli. I'll explain why. Because this could have been, and that's my own opinion here in Washington, this could have been a triggering point to some other events to take place inside the kingdom. Remember one thing. 2 days before 9/11, what did the Al-Qaeda do? They preemptively killed the head of the Northern Alliance in Afghanistan, Masoud Shah.
Right.
3 days or 2 days later, they did 9/11, and that was the trigger.
Right. So if you were to understand this logically, you would have to believe that there were other follow-on events that were going to come after or concurrent to the bombing attacks.
Absolutely. This operation, now I subscribe to the skeptics by saying, by itself, as it is, doesn't make sense strategically for the Iranians who are having, a great blast in the Middle East, penetrating Iraq as we're leaving, dominating Lebanon, lending hand to Assad, right? Deploying their navy in the Red Sea, bringing ships to the Eastern Mediterranean, signing an agreement with Hugo Chavez, and lately they were talking about, sailing those ships across from our East Coast. Why would they, in the middle of this expansion, create this one Pearl Harbor incident openly, right, to bring the United States to crush them? So what they were trying to do, basically, is ignite a warfare inside Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis have been telling us, that they have been spotting Iranian activities inside the eastern part of their kingdom. So that makes sense.
So this really was going to be the precursor to like a coup or something in Saudi Arabia?
Not necessarily a coup, but just project the settings and the way I can do it. 2 explosions in Washington. Saudi ambassador is dead, in the scenario, and the embassy is hit. A press release will have to be issued. That's the maker and the breaker of the whole issue. And the press release is not going to be by the Iranians. It's going to be by some, jihadi group that the Iranians have created. And the press release will say, we are punishing the Saudi regime for its collaboration with with Washington, and that's precisely why they did it in Washington, and they're going to say something else. And we also know that the Saudis and the Israelis are coordinating against our peoples and Iran. That's why we punish the Israelis, and therefore we call on our, insurgents inside Arabia to rise against this apostate regime. It's clear. It's by the Iranian book. But they failed because we've intercepted. Our interception of that failed operation of linking up with the Mexican cartels is the failure. And now they have to pay for it because now it's known that it was them.
Now, let me ask you, we're talking with Dr. Waleed Phares on 550 KTSA. Dr. Phares, is there any part of you that thinks there are vested interests who want a U.S.-Iran conflict, confrontation, war, and could they be behind, creating the pretext for that?
Well, let's be clear about it. If it's the Saudis themselves or if it's the Israelis, they have interest in having the United States mobilizing against the Iranian regime, but that's not the way they operate. Because if that is the case, they would be demolishing their relationship with the U.S. I mean, it's out of question. Are there other forces who want that to happen?
What about Iranian dissidents? Would they be interested in having us get into a war that might end the Iranian regime?
The Iranian dissidents' ideal situation, if we're talking about the green movement, not occult, secret forces that we don't know about, but if we're talking about the green movement, the last thing they would want to see us doing is a war in Iran. They want them to be supported the same way. The demonstrations are supported, meaning a political, gradual support of their movement. Yes, that's absolutely. But no one would actually, involve themselves in a terrorist attack against the heart of America, the political heart of America, knowing that this could lead to an American anger at them. Of course not.
Wouldn't there have been easier targets for this same kind of effect? I mean, couldn't you have killed Saudi diplomats elsewhere or even American diplomats outside the United States where it would be much easier to infiltrate and carry out an attack?
Yeah, the world is actually an open field for that. But the symbolism of Washington, the Saudi embassy in Washington, and the ambassador, by the way, is a very close ally and assistant to the king. He's the link between the king and the administration and the United States in general terms. So that has a lot of significance. And just if you are in the region, if you are a radical force in the region and you hear that the Saudi embassy blown up in Washington and press release from a jihadi group, calling on let's continue this intifada against the Saudis in the kingdom, that will have a different aspect than the Saudi embassy in Islamabad or in Zanzibar. Of course, it's different in terms of symbolism.
All right, Dr. Waleed Phares, who you can see on the Fox News channel, and always a good friend of our show, and we always appreciate your insight and your time, sir. Thank you today.
Thank you very much.
All right, it is at 12:30.